Then we move on to the organizational structure. When we are talking about organizational structure, before we jump on to the definition of organizational structure, we need to know two different definitions before we can define the organizational structure efficiently. The first of the definitions is basically what you call as chain of command, and the second one is span of control. Chain of command is the route through which decisions are communicated. It may also be defined as different levels of management involved in the decision-making process. So the route through which decisions are communicated or different levels of management involved in the decision-making process are referred to as chain of command. Then we have, for example, the first level is CEO, and then we have the directors, and then we have the managers, and then supervisors, and then the workers. So the decisions are basically going to be communicated from the top most level to the bottom level, and that is where we are basically talking about chain of command, different levels of management involved in the decision making process or the route through which decisions are communicated. The second definition is span of control. Number of workers working directly under a manager or supervisor is called change, is called, span of control. Span of control, we have to talk about the word directly here because in the examiner remarks, the examiner writes anyone who is not going to write the word directly is not going to be awarded any marks for knowledge. So number of workers working directly under a manager or supervisor is called span of control. Now we have to define organizational structure. Or an organizational structure refers to chains of command and spans of control present in an organization. So chains of command and spans of control present in an organization are referred to as organizational structure. Now some organizations like army are going to have very long chains of command. We start from general, and even in when we are talking about the general, we have different levels in general, lieutenant journal and then major journal. So we have different levels of journals, and then we have brigadiers, and even in them we have different levels, and then colonel, and then major and captain, and we have so many variations. So there is a very long chain of command, right? So there are some organizations which have very long chains of command. Talking about government organizations, we have scales starting from 1 to 22, right? Normally 1 to 22 are the different ranks of officers or different scales in which different levels of workers tend to exist. So very long chain of command. And then there are going to be organizations like, for example, if we are talking about different schools, the principal, the teachers, and then the administrative staff. Very long chain of command? No, short chain of command now. So we are talking about, short chains of command in some businesses, and in some businesses, very long chain of commands. Then we have some businesses where the span of control is very large. For example, the principal or the coordinator is controlling all the teachers working under her or working under him. And when we are talking about different types of structures where one brigadier is going to control two colonels or three colonels, now the span of control is very squeezed or narrow. So sometimes the span of control is narrow and sometimes the span of control is very broad. So two types of chains of command, long chains of command and short chains of command. And then we have broad spans of control and we have narrow spans of control. There are two types of organizations, or there are two types of organizational structure. An organizational structure having long chains of command and narrow spans of control is called hierarchical structure, vertical structure, bureaucratic structure, or tall structure. An organization having long chains of command and narrow spans of control is called a tall structure, or it is called a hierarchical structure. It is also called a bureaucratic structure, or it is also called a vertical structure. An organization having long chains of command and narrow spans of control. The other way around, an organization having short chains of command and broad spans of control is what you call as flat structure. It is called a flat structure. It is also called a horizontal structure. A horizontal structure. It is also called a matrix structure. The formal name, the matrix structure, and it is also sometimes called team-based structure or project-based structure or function-based structure. So a flat structure or matrix structure, these are the two names which are to be remembered, certainly. Flat structure or horizontal structure or matrix structure, and then the other structure is tall structure, hierarchical or bureaucratic structure. So an organizational structure having long chains of command and narrow spans of control is what you call as tall structure or hierarchical structure, and an organization having short chains of command and broad spans of control is called a horizontal or matrix structure. In this chapter, we talk about a few more definitions apart from these basic definitions of things or basic definitions of organizational structure. We talk about two types of managers. We have line managers and we have staff managers. Line managers are the functional managers who control a particular function or department, that is sales manager and human resource manager. And then staff managers are the managers who assist line managers and board of directors. They act as consultants of organization. For example, an IT manager is not only going to be a line manager, but he's also going to assist board of directors, but he is also going to implement IT procedures and softwares all over the organization. So he tends to normally act a little more than an IT manager. He's actually a consultant to the organization, and that is where he is mainly a staff manager rather than a line manager. Then we have a concept where we are going to end this chapter, which is called delayering. Delayering means out taking out one of the levels of management or one of the levels of hierarchy from the organizational structure, taking out one or more levels of hierarchy or one or more levels of management from the organizational structure is called delayering. It normally takes place during recession in the economy or due to change in the organizational structure. That is what you call as delayering. This is where the second chapter from unit 2 also ends.